Good evening, and thank you for joining us as results continue to pour in from today's special election.
Thousands of voters across Texas have helped change the state's constitution.
There were 17 proposals on the ballot. Here are some of the major ones we've been following since January.
Proposition 3 deals with reforms to the bail system. The proposal is intended to allow judges to deny bond for suspects accused of violent crimes or sexual offenses. State leaders say too many judges are releasing violent offenders back onto the streets. But critics say denying a defendant bail could undermine their presumption of innocence and violate their constitutional rights. At this hour, Texas voters are favoring this amendment with 63% approval rate.
Proposition 4 would invest billions into the state's water system. It's a proposal from Lubbock State Senator Charles Perry aimed at finding new sources of water and helping communities rebuild their infrastructure. This amendment would invest $1 billion a year over the next 2 decades into the Texas Water Fund. It also seems this proposition will likely pass with 71% of Texans voting in favor of it.
There are multiple proposals on the ballot related to property tax cuts. 2 of them focus on the homestead exemption, which allows homeowners to exclude a portion of their home's value from school district property taxes. Proposition 13 raises the baseline exemption to $140,000 for every homeowner in Texas. Few are voting against this one. It has an 82% approval rate.
The second is also receiving a support from the majority. It focuses on Texans over 65 and those with disabilities. Proposition 11 adds another $60,000 to their exemption. Supporters say those cuts are much needed break from rising taxes. Critics say it could cut into an already tight budget school districts have. Right now, 80% of voters are for the reduction.
And Texans are also keen on Proposition 14, with 68% of voters in favor of this. It would allocate money to study dementia and find treatment. It would set aside $3 billion for the creation of the Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas, or DPRIT, which would be modeled after Texas Cancer Institute, known as CPRIT. It is aimed at using state money to bring in top researchers to conduct studies on dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and other age-related mental illnesses across the state.
There are a dozen other amendments, including a number of tax bans and exemptions.
KCBD News Channel 11's Case Wilbanks has a look at those results. Case?
Well, Karen and Abner, we continue to get data from the Secretary of State's office, but essentially all these are passing tonight, starting with this endowment funding for the Texas State Technological College. That's passing with 68% of folks in favor of that. Proposition 2 is a ban on capital gains taxes. 67% of voters in favor of that. Proposition 5 is a tax exemption on animal feed, which is held by its owner, eventually to be sold. 65% in favor of that tax exemption. Proposition 6 is the ban on securities taxes or securities transactions like stock trading. 57% of voters in favor of that ban on that tax. And now Proposition 7 is a tax exemption for veteran spouses, those who are unremarried widows of veterans of service members who died or service members who died in connection with their service. 87% of folks in favor of a tax exemption for those spouses. And Proposition 8 is an inheritance tax ban, which a lot of people call death taxes. This would be a ban on taxes of a transfer of an estate, inheritance, that sort of thing. 74% of folks in favor of that ban. Proposition 9 is an inventory and equipment tax exemption, increasing that from $2,500 to $125,000 worth of business inventory or equipment. 66% of voters in favor of that. Now, Proposition 10 is a temporary tax exemption for homes that are burned in fires. Take a look at this. 90% of folks in favor of that, the largest margin I've seen here tonight. We've talked about Proposition 11. Proposition 12 is changing how the State Judicial Conduct Commission is created. 63% of folks in favor of changing that. Proposition 15 is codifying parental rights, saying parents are the decision makers for their children. 71% of folks making that change to the state constitution. Proposition 16 making sure that only U.S. citizens are voting in elections. 74% of folks making sure that that's in the Texas Constitution. And Proposition 17, the last one, a property tax exemption for property values increasing because of border security infrastructure. And of course, that would be on property along the border. Again, all these propositions appear to be passing tonight. We have all these results at kcbd.com. Karen and Abner.
Thank you, Case.